Pretty good, really good actually. I'm in town. We're getting ready for the house to get going, and that'll be in a couple hours' time, I guess.
What's the first question to the government today, Jim?
Oh, I have no idea. We haven't finalized that yet, because who knows what's going to happen between now and noon or now and 12:30. Now, anything could happen. Another minister might resign. There could be another by-election.
Oh man, here we go.
Who knows?
Right on. Okay. We'll wait and see.
In the field, we'd have to go and get one of our candidates go for another by-election and change the seats again in the house.
We'll see. We'll wait and see what happens.
Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today, I know you want to talk about policy and all that stuff, and everybody wants to talk about policy, but I want to talk about the team, the delivery system, because what's the good of the policy, which is just like that's a promise book. That's all the parties lined up saying, we think this is a great idea and this is what we propose to do. I think that you're a sports buff, and you would look at the tail of the tape. You would look at who's done what, who's got these points, and who's on your team, who's going to deliver what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
And if fiscal responsibility is one of the most pressing issues in the province, and I think that it is, you have to look at who the Liberals have sitting and who they've nominated. And if you look from a business point of view, Dwight, Kathy, Tom, Randy, and myself, we're all business owners. A lot of it hands-on business owners, so we understand that. Two of our candidates, Stelman Flynn and Steve Crocker, are both business owners, and they're in the field right now. Paul Antle is a prominent business owner, operator, entrepreneur in the province. And before you think, well, these guys are all about business, you've got to consider that Scott Reed is a PhD in political science. Dale Kirby is a PhD in education. Sam Slade is a commercial fisherman for all of his life. And Lisa Dempster has worked in employment services, getting people hired. So if you look at the depth of the team and the quality of the team, I think that's really important to line up the two teams, one across from the other. And you being a sports player, you should see that.
I do see that. I do think that there's also part and parcel of politics that people will look to the top. And sometimes that'll, translate beyond the leader to the next 2-3 key figures in a party or the government. But by and large, a lot of people do look at the abilities of the leaders to be the leader, to be the premier. So there also has to be some importance given to that. And Mr. Ball has certainly come a long way as the leader of the Liberal Party and how he puts himself forward and the level of gravitas. We hope that it's associated with some policy. But you must admit that we're also suckers for focusing on leaders as well as assessing the abilities of the team as a whole.
Yeah, we do. But the other thing that you would do as a sports analyst is that you would look at the record. When you'd look at the record and how do they play here and how do they play there. Well, this opposition hasn't been in power for the last 11 years, but the government has been in the opposition or has been in government for the last 11 years. So you'd have to look at this is what you say you're going to do, but this is what you've actually done in the last 11 years. You have had more money than any other government in the history of the province, yet you've found a way to close more schools, more fish plants, and more pulp mills than any other government we've ever had. And you've run 3 deficits in the past 3 years. You want us to re-elect you?
Jim, one of the issues that, and of course people will gauge the track record and determine if they think it is worthwhile of more or to absolutely turf them on their ear. But when it comes to the broad scope of people say $20 billion of oil revenue squandered, is there room for legitimate conversation into what had to be done, some of the less sexy investments, or is this strictly a case of $20 billion exhausted and or squandered? For me, if you have to even just add up some of the infrastructure that had to be spent on, even though we know that the Liberals had no choice but to leave some things unattended to because there was no money. But so the broad stroke of $20 billion squandered, that's a bit rich, isn't it?
I don't think you can say all $20 billion have been squandered. For sure, but what have we done with it? How have we prioritized it? What have we done with the money? And what have we not done with the money? And when you look at the infrastructure requirements that this province still has, they're absolutely enormous. Mm-hmm. We've cut through an awful lot of money. We've increased the size of government to what looks like an unsustainable amount. We now cost more per capita to govern people in this province than any other province in Canada. How can we possibly do that? Yet at the same time, our education has slid, as calculated by the PISA scores, which is an international score. We have gone from being in the middle of the pack when we were a have-not province to second last and vying for last place with Prince Edward Island when we've become a have province. So what have we done with the money? We may not have squandered it all, but we've messed up a whole pile. I mean, if you look at even the expropriation in Grand Falls at the paper mill, which we don't even know what the cost that's going to be yet, when you look at the money that's gone with erotic and pellet plant. If you look across the board, the bad moves that government's made, you can see where a lot of the money is gone.
Oh, there's no doubt issues, and no one would be so foolish to suggest that there's not issues that have gone unattended and or priorities that have been less than what the electorate would have done so far as prioritizing the list. Unfortunately, Jim, we're out of time, but I always enjoyed the conversation. You're welcome to call again later in the weekend. We'll get further into it as we see what unfolds in the House of Assembly.
Thanks, Pat. And I forgot our doctor, Dr. John Hagee. So we'll even have a doctor sitting in our government when we're elected in sometime in the next year. So I think that's a splendid caucus to have in place, and only half of them are even nominated yet.
Yeah, I better not bump you up the list for a doctor's appointment, but that's okay. We'll see. We'll talk about that. See you, Jim.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.